In this Patreon-requested album review, I was asked to give my thoughts on Nickelback's 7th studio album, Here and Now. It turns out patrons are starting to figure out that they can have me review any album they want within reason, even if they know it's by a band I'm not particularly fond of. Here's hoping this doesn't become some type of dreadful trend. Released on November 21st, 2011, Here and Now debuted at number 2 on the US Billboard 200 after selling over 200,000 copies in its first week, eventually going platinum. The album would go on to sell over 2 million copies worldwide with the support of 5 radio singles. It was at this point in time we just about realized that for better or worse, Nickelback was here to stay and would be a seller no matter what. I've gone on in the past about how Nickelback figured out the formula to a radio single by listening to other songs and what was successful and then copying that formula into their own writing. Regardless of what you think about that being sincere or original, it still worked. This album, Here and Now, is further proof of that, as Nickelback's formula is still present in much of this album. When this album came out back in 2011, I literally had not listened to one track of it. At a patron's request, however, I now have heard one more Nickelback album, and I can safely say it is exactly what I expected. Despite what many people think, I don't really hate Nickelback. However, it upsets me when I know they are capable of more when they have created much better work in the past, and they actively choose not to put in the creative effort. Whether it's the best of the 5 singles or just one of the better songs from Here and Now, the opening track, This Means War, actually gives a bit of hope when you first hear it. When listening from beginning to end, you at least get a bit excited because it sounds deeper in tone, angrier, and more energetic than the previous years of Nickelback had before then. The guitar riffs and rhythm is strong, and Chad Kroeger's vocals don't sound like the flat nasal delivery in most of the band's smash radio hits. The build-up feels like something fierce is coming, and on many levels the album opener would normally get fans excited because this is not the norm for Nickelback, or at least not the norm for the band back at the turn of the decade. This invigorating style from Nickelback does not last long, however. If this style had been used more frequently, a sound that shows the band has a passion, then it could have been a new corner for the multi-platinum selling band. But the radio single formula comes back strong, as over half of the album is a calculated style that we've heard from the band many times before. The longer you listen to this album, the more you realize how flat each song goes and that it doesn't even peak or change volume from beginning to end. Songs like Kiss It Goodbye and Hold On to Heaven are great examples of cruise control in a song if I've ever heard it. This is what disappoints me about Nickelback, in that you know they can do something better, like the opening song, but they actively choose to phone it in.
Stealing comes with practice, lying comes with ease, but neither one is faster than falling to your knees.
While radio singles are what make Nickelback a household name, it's songs like Kiss It Goodbye that go unplayed by the masses and completely forgotten about. In fact, if you play songs like this to many Nickelback fans, they won't even know which album it's on. There is a poorly leveled mixing where the guitar comes out too loud over a song about fame and failure and drugs and nothing. It's really as hollow as filler can possibly get. Even songs that were featured on the album and played on the radio that are still played at live concerts sound like they shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but somehow people kept demanding more from Nickelback because they are recognizable. Lullaby and When We Stand Together are the perfect example of movie trailer background music that you aren't supposed to pay attention to. They should not be singles.
Just close your eyes. What are you close to lullaby? You really don't lullaby. Please let me take you.
Lullaby is a change from the past format of How You Remind Me and Someday, but it's so melodramatic and trying to pull at your emotions on the surface that it's only when you really try to listen that you realize the song about trying again and not giving up hope is about as deep as a kiddie pool. The slow pace and bad chorus that feels like it's stretched to make it the track longer does not help. Even with its dramatic music video about a mother dying that gives an example of holding on no matter the circumstance, it's still quite clear that a song like this is pandering to the emotional crowd looking for something sad. To sum up, this album is about 50% filler, has 2 good songs including the album opener, and several tracks that should not have been played like the next hot thing on the radio, but somehow were.
We must stand together. There's no giving.
I can't say enough that I do not hate Nickelback. My problem with the band is that it's been proven they can do better when they want to. Even within this album, you can hear flashes of creativity and ability, but why would people put in extra effort when they know that the status quo will sell no matter what? Another million albums sold later, and that theory is proven. Overall, Here and Now is definitely not the worst Nickelback album by far, but I rarely hear anyone talk about it even by the band's diehard defensive fan base. And while not being the worst thing Nickelback has created by a long shot, it still is more fuel for the fire in the argument that Nickelback phones it in.